So a little background here. My father was in the Army for 21 years, retired and moved to a very small town in Central Florida. He got bored after a couple years. And even though we didn't need the money between his retirement and what my mom was making as a bookkeeper/tax prep, he still wanted to go back to work. He started working at various gas stations, and it being a small town, the owners wouldn't care if I came there and helped him out with stocking the coolers or even running the register as long as I didn't sell any beer or smokes. This all took place in the late 80s and early 90s. The actual story I'm going to tell took place in 1990, and I remember the date well because it was shortly after my birthday, and being 15 in Florida, I'd just gotten my learner's permit, and my dad will let me drive him to and from work, just to get some experience on the road, both at day and at night. I was sitting in my usual spot at a table that was set up along the windows, book in hand, feet propped up, and a Mountain Dew on the table along with some snacks. I would generally spend most of the evening that way, reading books, getting up to run the register, and stock the cooler at different times. I remember glancing up because something caught my attention that was unusual, and I realized that a lady was walking up our parking lot from the direction of the interstate. The gas station was right on the I-75. This in itself was really strange, because where we were located, you didn't get many people walking, and definitely not walking from the direction of the interstate. I figured she had broken down somewhere, and was coming to use the phone to call for a tow truck or something. I was completely wrong. She came into the store, looked around for a few minutes, and I remember getting just a strange and creepy feeling about her. She walked up to the counter and started telling my dad a story about how she'd gotten stranded and needed a ride up to the next big town up north from us. My dad lets her know that he's working and there's no way that he can take her. She turns and looks at me, and while she is looking away from him, my dad catches my eye and suddenly shakes his head no. I was confused for a second. Then she turns back to my dad and points at me, asking if I can take her. My dad responded back that I only had a learner's permit and wouldn't be able to drive her anywhere and then drive back. Normally, I would have done it, even though it was illegal, because I'd done it a few times before already. I didn't argue with my dad, since this was completely out of character for him. He was normally chatty with the customers, but for whatever reason, he was almost curt and dismissive of her. Turns out, he had a bad vibe about her from the minute he had seen her walking up the driveway. Well, she cusses him for a minute, and he basically tells her to get out of the store. She slammed the door open. I thought the glass was going to break from how hard she'd slammed it. And then she stalks out the store and down the driveway. I keep an eye on her and continue to watch as she makes her way back up the interstate and then starts up the northbound on ramp. Almost a year passes, and I'm in my bedroom, less than a week before my 16th birthday. I hear my dad yelling from the living room,
"Son, get your ass down here, look at this!"
I quickly run up to the living room and see my dad pointing at the TV and look at the mugshot of the lady up on screen. I immediately remember the lady who had been in the store. Turns out I almost gave a car ride to Aileen Wuornos, who was later convicted of being a serial murderer and then later put to death. Still have nightmares about what could have happened. I went to a small school. There were 8 girls in my class. It was a bit chilly out, so none of them wanted to hang out after school. However, my best friend stepped up and we agreed to go alone. There were no problems at first. The town is small, friendly, clean, and our parents gave us permission to go, even though it was just us two. It wasn't long until we noticed a white van trailing behind us. I distinctly remember being told to avoid white vans at a young age, and so I grew up terribly afraid of them. My friend and I laughed because we noticed it at the exact moment I told her I was afraid of them. But we picked up the pace. So did the van. We didn't want to seem like scaredy cats, so we stopped. So did the van. We began to inch forward, but eventually the van picked up speed and came ever closer to us. It was terrifying. I grabbed my friend's wrist and with a painful smile told her to go along with it. I held her hand and walked up to the front door of the nearest house. I fiddled in my purse for a non-existent key as we carried on an equally non-existent conversation. The van stopped right in front of us, and the scruffy man driving it rolled down his window and stared at us. Just then, my friend's mom drove up and asked us if we wanted a ride. The van immediately sped off. We didn't tell the mom what happened right away. We took it lightheartedly. but as someone who grew up afraid of kidnappings, it was terrifying. This happened yesterday, and before anyone says anything, yes, I know I'm stupid. I had just gotten home from work around 9 p.m. and I barely had time to get my shoes off when I got a phone call from some number I didn't recognize. I'm searching for new jobs and thought that it might be one of the places that I was applying to calling me back. I pick it up and it's some guy who says that he's with some kind of third-party detention center, which, as he explained it, was for low-risk inmates that were sent there whenever the local jails were busy or filled. That should have set off a nice big red flag for me, but for whatever reason, it just made sense in my tired brain. I'm getting ready to tell this guy I'm not interested in making a donation or anything like that when he asks.
Is this Haley Smith?
I confirm, and he says that they're holding my boyfriend at the center, saying my boyfriend's full name, and giving a dead-on description of him. I asked what's going on since my boyfriend is supposed to be at work right now, and the guy on the other end provides an explanation. He says that my boyfriend had struck a pregnant woman with his car on his way to work and was 4 times the legal limit for blood alcohol. He said the woman was in critical condition and that my boyfriend had broken a few ribs and his nose in the accident. I'm freaking out at this point and ask if I can speak to my boyfriend, which the man obliges. I'm put on hold for a few minutes before my boyfriend picks up the line. This person on the other end was panicking, saying how it wasn't his fault and begging me not to tell his parents, again using my name. It didn't particularly sound like my boyfriend, but I figured it was because of the broken nose he supposedly had, and his tone really helped to sell it, because it all sounded so legitimate. The man from before comes back on the line before I can ask any questions and explains that they had to sedate my boyfriend since he had began to panic and hyperventilate, which I was starting to relate to more and more by the second. The man on the other end tells me that I should come right away and that the bail is set at $2,000, cash only. I stupidly tell him that I don't have that much and that I maybe have half of that. He tells me that it's fine, that I can work something out with the front office once I get here, and to just bring what I have, and seemingly like he's trying to calm me down. He's giving me the address, but I can barely hold a pen because my hands are shaking so badly, and I'm very poorly trying to hold back tears. All of a sudden the door opens up, and in walks my boyfriend, completely normal looking, no broken nose, but more than a little confused as to why I'm crying. I'm still on the phone with the man and ask him what the fuck he thinks he's doing, telling him how my boyfriend just walked in, and he promptly hangs up. I tried calling back a few times, but it went directly to voicemail. Find out the power to the bar my boyfriend works at had gone out, so his boss sent everyone home early, and I'd never been so grateful for a power outage. My boyfriend slept on the couch to keep watch, but unfortunately I still couldn't sleep that night. So I decided to look up the name of the organization the man said he worked for. Big surprise, that turned up nothing. I then looked up the address he had given me on Google Maps and see that it was some random abandoned strip mall in the middle of a sketchy-ass area that was about an hour and a half out of town. What really freaked me out about this whole thing was the guy knew my number, both me and my boyfriend's names, but didn't sound like anyone we had met before. I have no idea what would have been waiting for me there, but I'm counting my lucky stars right now. So to the guy who wanted to meet me for God knows what at the sketchy-ass strip mall, let's not meet.